left behind 11 years ago the humidity, mosquitoes, lakes, streams, and miles of forest in the Adirondacks, New York, to the man-made aqueducts, sunny sky, dry, and high elevations of Colorado. At first I noticed that the horizon was bigger, an account that the trees were far and few between. The moon is much larger here, and I assume the sun is closer to us as well. Breathing was difficult, and I felt like I was in a constant state of dehydration. You need to drink a couple quarts a day here. Funny thing is, I do not remember drinking water back in New York. Everything seems to have a sharp point here. The rocks, grasses, vegetation. The grass is the color of the wheat, and the stone was not gray, but red, yellow, blue, and even brown. The mountains are not smooth boulders, but rough and unstable slabs of stone, slipping under your feet as you walk. The soil seemed to be dust and hardened clay. I took many photos over the years and learned to appreciate Colorado even more. It gets hot here, and the sky is blue most of the year. However, it is a blue that pales in comparison to that of a sky near great bodies of water. The winters seem long, but the snow only remains for a moment. The sun never is really far away in Colorado. ¿Cómo estás? Hola, ¿cómo está? Bien, ¿y tú? Hey there, this is Canadian Conquistador again, and this is going to be wrapping up the last of my videos using old photographs of the yard, and it just happens to be on my koi pond. The first build, this will be one part of 2 videos. The other one will come out in the spring when I redo it. This pond is the prototype, obviously, like I do with all my projects. I have a prototype and then I make the final one. Yes, I'm going to show you how from the first stages of digging into the ground and eventually making my first prototype concrete koi pond. I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you like it, and please subscribe down at the bottom. Alright, thank you. So, I must tell you one thing, that this pond is ranked up in the top 20 worst mistakes that I have ever done in my life. I didn't research how to do it. I didn't explore the facts that Colorado has bentonite, which is a clay that expands and heaves and during the frost and warms up in the summer and settles back down, and that is the worst thing to use is concrete for a pond. This has been the most frustrating project I think I've worked on for the last 6 years, and I would never ever recommend it to any of you to do a concrete pond, at least not without research. So when I was a little kid, I remember my grandmother having a small little pond, and she'd keep fish in there, and it was made of concrete, so I figured as an adult that concrete would work here also. Little did I know that Grandma's house had humus soil, and we have hard clay, aka bentonite. When it gets wet, it gets really, really sticky and slippery, and when it's dry, it's hard as a rock. Here in the photo, I planned to dig the pond out in the back northeast corner because that's where the least sunshine was, and I figured that that would reduce algae, and it was kind of out of the way, and I wanted to do something with the corner because corners are really tricky figuring out what to do with them. You are absolutely correct. I did hand dig this entire thing. It took me a couple days with just a shovel and an edger, and I went down about 3 feet in the deepest part. The pond itself is probably 20 feet by 20 feet altogether and consists of 3 separate individual ponds. One is slightly higher than the other 2, and that would enable a waterfall to trickle over that higher up pond and go down into the lower ponds. I ordered 80 times 80 pounds sacks of concrete and hand mixed it myself in a wheelbarrow and applying them one bag at a time. It was not a fun job. I'm quite sure I slept very well that night. After the initial shaping and digging was over, I had to find a way to reinforce it, so I took this trampoline, dismantled it, took the bars, got rid of the tarp, and I used the bars from the trampoline as reinforcement for the concrete. As you can see here, I laid it out all throughout the pond. So there's steel under there. Lots of steel and chicken wire. So I wanted to prevent cracking, and it was my understanding that concrete needed some sort of reinforcement. So this is how I figured that. And it also was me recycling again. In the next photo, you can see I have an order of wood chips on my driveway and bags of concrete that were delivered to me. I would have to haul those bags all the way around the house in a wheelbarrow and then rip them open, apply water, mix it up, and apply it to the ground. And if you watch my rabbit video, you were already told that all the dirt from the pond went up and over the rabbit house. And also along the banks. You have to put it somewhere. Just remember that if you dig out a pond, you gotta put the dirt somewhere. Here I started reinforcing a brick wall that I wanted to put up, and that had metal also. That's where I would put my pump at and have my plumbing. As you can see, the two white pump pipes coming out the side of the wall there. My waterfall would be coming from that northern facing wall. I wanted to make it look like the water ripped the brick open and poured over, so I made it kind of rustica. Then I started working on the waterfall feature, which I had to get cinder blocks and run pipe out to the yard, about 20 feet to the northwest corner of the yard, where I would put a crick eventually. I had also ran a second line of pipe to the north side of the pond for the waterfall feature, which would become a slight nightmare also. After the pond was pretty much poured and the plumbing went in and was placed underground, I started building several other objects around the pond, such as a concrete bench, a waterfall feature, and a bridge that would go over the creek. Now, I have to explain a little bit about the bridge. The bridge, I built it on the concrete patio behind my house. I didn't build it in place where you see it installed at. So I built it with reinforced steel and brick and concrete. Again, it's a theme. I guess I like permanence. But then when it was dried, I realized that it weighed about 900 pounds. And myself, had to be the one to move it over 30 feet across the yard into its position. So how did I do this? Medieval style. So what I did is I got steel rollers from the trampoline and I pried up the bridge and laid them underneath, and I literally used a crowbar and those rollers to move it very slowly across the yard on the brick pathway. And when I got it into place, I was able to lower it back down. But that's how I moved that bridge to where it's at today. So the seating area was made of brick and sand, and eventually I would tamper this down and put brick upon the sitting area, where I would place a fire pit eventually. The bench was actually like stuccoed over, and I have plans to put tile on it eventually, recycled probably from our bathroom tile. But then I also put up this gazebo. I shuggy band the old garden wood and placed it up as a trellis for grapevines. I would also put in a stream that meandered through the yard. It kind of goes out like 20 feet and then rolls back into the pond. And then I put up this original waterfall, was these giant planter boxes, but they eventually cracked and spilled water and they didn't function. But they were pretty when they were first put in. The first year they actually were functional, and after that I removed them and made them just rock waterfalls. Then I began to paint a coating over the concrete that was supposed to be allegedly waterproof, which it worked. It worked for a while. It held water. Then it would spring leaks, real slow leaks that were really annoying. Then the fun part began. We were able to plant around the pond and start filling it with water and decorating it with stones. At least that's my favorite part, is the decorating part, the edging. So finally we have a pond, we have a seating area. It's quite beautiful actually, and we had many enjoyable moments around this pond. We've had fish in there that have been eaten by raccoons that came in, and I would buy cheap fish. I wouldn't buy the expensive ones. I bought the little penny fish, threw them in there, and eventually we had a pond. And it's been 6 years now. So I had mentioned that it's been the worst nightmare that I've ever had, basically, is an understatement. Every year I had leaking issues. It would hold water for 2 months, and then all of a sudden I notice it'd be down an inch. Then the next day it'd be down another inch and another inch. So eventually I'd have to drain this whole pond of its water, which is quite a lot of water. Fortunately, I'd put it into my hugel mounds and water them with it. But then looking for the leaks is nearly impossible. There's no way of finding the leaks unless they're so big that you can see them. And I had already put over waterproofing and everything else, so you couldn't even find these leaks anyways. So I would buy rubber coating that was quite expensive, and I sealed the whole thing in rubber, a rubber liner, and even that held water for a little while, but I'm over it, seriously. I am so over trying to fix leaks. So this winter I bought 2 Firestone rubber liners, and they're supposed to be like the best thing ever, and they're like 45 mil thick, I think. But that will be going into the pond this spring. As soon as I clean out that pond, I'm going to clean it all out. And the good thing about the concrete is I have a real nice foundation for this liner, so it'll be solid. And I'm going to have to re-edge it. It's probably not even going to look like the same pond anymore. But do not make a concrete fish pond unless it's very small, okay? If you're going to do something big, go with the rubber liner. Put sand down first and then do the rubber liner, but I'll explain that to you in the part 2 of this video. And while I'm here, I'm going to tell you that this is the last of my old photograph videos. From now on, every one of my videos are going to be fresh photography that I've taken that day, and nothing's going to be recycled from the past. I've already made those videos documenting how everything has got to this point, so now everything's a move forward with my videos. So if you like this video and you want to see more, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see ya.